Well, we're back here at the Skirball Center today because they have a pretty wonderful exhibit on the career of Leonard Bernstein. Now, I've always associated Leonard Bernstein basically with West Side Story. That's what I know him best from. But there's a lot more to him than that. Check this out. It says, I want to conduct, I want to play the piano, I want to write for Hollywood, I want to write symphonic music, I want to keep on trying to be, in the full sense of that wonderful word, a musician. I also want to teach, I want to write books and poetry, and I think I can still do justice to them all. And he did. Now here's one of his performing batons. Check that out. Actually says the baton itself must be a living thing, charged with a kind of electricity which makes it an instrument of meaning in its tiniest movements. If you check this out, they pretty much have the timeline of his life, well, musical life, from 1958 when he was beginning as the first season of music director of the New York Philharmonic, till he conducted his final in 1990. Now this particular case is pretty much all dedicated to West Side Story, including some of the original score, handwritten score, the original poster, one of the original playbills. How great is that? Leonard Bernstein and Jerome Robbins there together. And here it is, Academy of Recording Artists and Sciences, original Broadway cast. Wow, that's great. Now over here we have a little bit of the childhood history, including his childhood radio. I guess it says music books. The whole pieces, piano pieces, the whole world plays. So this would be like standards from 1918. Here's some photographs of a young Leonard Bernstein. His birth certificate from, looks like Lawrence, Kansas. No, Lawrence, Massachusetts. That was a confirmation and graduation class photo. His diploma from religious school. There's his dad's company. Now you can see there that his dad released some of these crazy headpiece devices that I've shown you in different museums. And here's one of them right here. Would you let somebody attach those to your head? And crank? Are you kidding me? And it was for hair care. I mean, you see right there, Samuel Bernstein Hair Company. Now, would you like to know what the purpose of this machine was? Yep. To give you a permanent perm. Permanent curls. Now this is actually his transcript from Harvard. Now this one is actually his grade card from music school. The Curtis Institute of Music from 1940. Now these are from Bernstein's studio. Now one of the cool things that I noticed right away as soon as I started looking at it was up on his walls he has that picture of George Washington talking to somebody in like an airplane seat, and it looks like it's him. So it looks like it's George Washington talking to Leonard Bernstein. And then over here you also have a picture of Garbo. Isn't that interesting? So as arranged here are some of the contents of Leonard Bernstein's studio. A two-room prefabricated cottage connected to former stables on the grounds of the Bernstein family estate. Now it actually says that he composed most of the music from the last 3 decades of his life in this studio. Wow. And there's a photo of the studio set up in his house. So that's that exact same table and everything that we're looking at. Same exact picture positioning. And that is his same exact coat rack, his coat, all that stuff. Look at that. Everything is exactly the same. I love it. Now right here is the Bernstein family piano. It was a Brewster, it says. And right there you can see it. We've got a plaque for it. Leonard Bernstein's piano from the Bernstein family home in Sharon, Massachusetts. Purchased from the Bernstein family in 1951 by Professor Glatzer. Now here they have an assortment of his luggage pretty much from his entire life. I mean, at least his composing life. It says it's from the 50s to the 1980s, so. There's even a luggage tag. I wish I could flip it over, but everything says do not touch on it, so. Oh, there you could see an address that said Leonard on there. Wow. There we go, there we go. There's one. Let's take a look at that. And that's the rest of it. That must have been for the suits and things like that. A garment bag. I've never quite seen a garment bag suitcase that big. That's huge. LB personally. Wow. Now here we actually have one of his suits with a cloak and everything attached to it. Man, look how classy that looks too. The thing hangs all the way down to here. This one was one of the last ones because this is from the 1980s. Man, I love the detail on that. Guy was a snappy dresser, wasn't he? This was from the 1980s. And then this Baldwin grand piano was actually one of his from the 70s. Now this is cool. This has some of his earlier accomplishments, including on the waterfront, the lobby card from that. Yeah, he created a lot of music, I'm telling you. Here's his, when he did the musical accompaniment for Peter Pan. Some of his awards, his Tony Award for Wonderful Town. And his, looks like one of his film scores from On the Waterfront. Now this newspaper is here because this was actually the newspaper for the day that Leonard Bernstein made his debut with the New York Philharmonic, and they actually talk about him in here. Young aide leads Philharmonic, steps in when Bruno Walter is ill. So that's how it happened. And then here's a Western Union that you can see says Leonard Bernstein, care of Philharmonic Orchestra, Carnegie Hall. Wow, that's very cool. And look who it's sent from. And then that's his original book from that night, from 1943. It's for the Schumann-Manfred Overture. Now that's the program from that night, and if you look right there in the dead center, there's Bruno Walter is crossed out and it says Leonard Bernstein right under it. That was for the night of November 14th, 1943, when he made his debut. Here's some of the posters from some of his memorable things that were on Broadway. And there he is on the cover of Time magazine. And here he is, Welcome Home International Heroes, Leonard Bernstein at the New York Philharmonic from 1959. And then that picture is actually Leonard Bernstein there on the right with Jackie O right in the dead center. So when I just showed you that Western Union that was signed, it was signed by his mentor, Serge Koyasevsky, I think was how you pronounced it. And Serge gave him those cufflinks that you see right there, and it says that every one of his performances, he would always kiss these cufflinks before walking out onto the stage for good luck. And these, like I said, they were given to him by his mentor. And then those little golf pencil looking things were what he used to compose, and he used to call these his soldiers. There's his brass ruler that he would use when he was creating the compositions. And then this is actually a letter from the White House dated July 8th, 1958, signed by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. And he was congratulating him on the New York Philharmonic and Leonard Bernstein's success of their Latin American tour, a project that was partially funded by the State Department to promote goodwill and cultural exchange during the Cold War. And that is the program from that, as you see, A Momentous Journey, Latin American Tour. Now this podium right here was actually the same one that he used for his outdoor series in the 1940s, it says. Look at that. How cool is that? He would have had his little soldiers laying right up there in case he would need to make any last minute alterations during, and would have had his manuscript of the sheet music right there. How cool is that? Now here we have some of his mementos and some of the costumes and various things from a project he did called Mass. It was actually something that Jackie O had requested he do. It was called Mass, a theater piece for singers, players, and dancers. The work was performed as part of the celebration of the opening of the Kennedy Center for Performing Arts in Washington, D.C. in 1971. That chalice, it's pretty cool. And then that's one of his writing boxes. From 1956, he received this as a gift from Lillian Hellman during the collaboration for Candide, which is right there. And here are some of the costume sketches for it. There's also the set key, so you can kind of see how the set was laid out for it. Now I love that they did this because this was one of my favorite artists when I was a kid, Hirschfeld. Now Hirschfeld is sometimes called, well, his artwork is sometimes called the Ninas. He's the guy that does the Ninas. And the Ninas are basically, he would always incorporate his daughter's name into his artwork somehow. So the goal was to look through the artwork somewhere and look for the word Nina. And you can always find it if you look hard enough. Do you see it now? How about now? So it says he was a caricaturist whose work was primarily housed in the Whitney Museum. Al Hirschfeld portrayed Bernstein in numerous sketches throughout his career. And it said that Hirschfeld was really good at capturing the performer in a way that other people couldn't normally capture them, which, from everything that we've seen already about Leonard Bernstein and how hard he worked and how much he worked, this would be pretty accurate, wouldn't you say? And then look at this one. There's his instrument that comes to life in his hands. Do you see the Nina? And of course that one. Now right over here we have a handful of record releases. He recorded more than 800 albums for a number of prominent record companies during his distinguished career. And then here are some of his awards. Check this out. I mean, we've got, obviously you can see right off the top, he's got Grammys and honorary degrees and gold records. There's an Emmy. That's the Kennedy Center Honor, which I've never actually seen one of those, so it's cool to see. A couple of more Emmy Awards. That one's from 1956, and that one's from 1957. Yeah. National Jewish Welfare Bond, 1966, for a distinguished contribution to the advancement of American Jewish culture. And there, let it be known that he has a life membership to the American Civil Liberties Union, so the ACLU. And then this was a Billboard Award from 1966, and at the very, very first spot you see him conducting Mahler's 7th Symphony. Now this is cool. All of this music in this glass case was actually the handwritten music from West Side Story from 1956. So you can actually see where it says the words written tonight. And then this one at the very top says Maria. Over here they actually have a place where you can do your photo op from West Side Story. This particular desk was his desk in the 1950s that he wrote West Side Story and Candide on. Now here we actually have one of his shirts from the 1980s, and this one's got the monogram. If you look right under the pocket, you can see a little blue LB right there. And then that is his cigarette box with his monogram on there, as well as his slippers, the LB slippers. And we had another cigarette box over here, his typewriter from the 1960s. And he was actually investigated at one point as being considered un-American because he was a leftist and he was Jewish. There's a family photo, and then there's a photo from his passport. There's a religious necklace that he used to wear. And there is the investigation paperwork from his investigation, like I mentioned. This was his toiletries case, and then we had a little stone fragment right there. That's a piece of the Berlin Wall that he brought back, and it says Lenny written on it. And then above that are some of his glasses. Now I really love this piece because this is a handwritten piece called 4th Grade Tears for Nina, which was his youngest daughter, and it said that he inscribed it with love from Daddy, June 7th, 1972. So she must have had a rough day at school that day, huh? Now if you're wondering what this is pretty funny. These little hash marks were his cigarette counts. He would count how many he was having per day. Well, like I've said before, the Skirball does their exhibits very, very well. And if you're in California, this is not a place you want to miss. Right now they have the Henson exhibit, they have a Noah's Ark exhibit, and of course the 100 years of Leonard Bernstein. Well, I'd say for the most part we have pretty much seen as much as you can see about Leonard Bernstein in here, and I think this was a pretty awesome exhibit as well. Well, why don't you say we take off from the Skirball and head home now?